Hello and welcome to episode 45 of the Your Way podcast. So shortly, the incredible Allison Gallagher will be joining me. We are going to have an incredible conversation around food and our relationships with food and our relationship with our body and how it impacts our life and how it shows up. But before that, I just wanted to take a moment to remind you that Wealthy Witches, the mission, which is my new mastermind, is now open for enrollment. So we kick off properly on Wednesday, the 9th of April. And I really would love to invite you to this space if you are in a place in your life where you know you are not currently doing what you came here to do. So work does not energize you, it does not give you joy, it does not bring you vibrancy, and you have this sense inside you that you came here for more. You came here to make a difference. Maybe you see yourself as a bit of a rebel or a disruptor, or you look at some of the systems that you operate within, whether it's the corporate system or the food supply chain or how they do in education or how parenting happens or how mothers and fathers are supported or not supported. And you look at these things and you feel this pull to do something to make them operate better. And yet there's a little something inside you that stops you following that nudge. Now, if you're at a place where you are like, I'd really like to follow that nudge, but I need some support to get there because it doesn't feel safe right now. Got all of these doubts, all of these reasons why I think this isn't possible for me, then Wealthy Witches, the mission is the space for you. So this is the space where you're really going to deepen into your mission, your purpose, but from a place of recognizing that the most important mission that you will ever undertake is the one to come home to yourself, to take care of yourself first, and to have a really amazing life. So it's very much a you first approach, designed to allow you to live and love your glorious life at the same time as building and having the capacity to do the work that lights you up and the work that you came here to do. So we are really at a turning point now in the collective, and you may have felt the energy shifts that have been intensifying as this year goes through. And more of us are awakening and stepping into this space of seeing that we are here now for a purpose, for a reason, and it is to make a difference to positively impact the collective as a whole. So if this is you, if this is the space that you are in, and you've been looking for a place to land to allow you to do this in a way that feels good for you, that takes care of you first, that honors your needs, your desires, your wants, and lets you do it your way, check out the Wealthy Witches Mastermind information, which is in the show notes. Reach out to me however you normally would. Let's have a chat and see if this space is for you. So it's going to be a small, intimate space, limited to 8. Men and women are welcome. Like, you don't have to be a woman to be a witch. This is about, so for me, the witch is someone who has returned to their natural place. They're in touch with their kind of intuitive psychic gifts. They know that so much wisdom comes from the body, and they really want to harness the collective consciousness, that kind of unity consciousness, the feeling that we are all connected to make a positive difference. So please do not be put off from this if you are not female, because this is not a female space. This is a space for that person who is intuitive, psychic, deeply connected, and knows that those gifts are part of why they are here this time to shift and shape and make change in the world. So information below, come and speak to me. Can't wait to have you in this space if it is right for you. And now let's welcome Allison and get on with this week's podcast.
Can I say something real fast?
Okay, Allison, welcome to the Your Way podcast. It is so lovely to have you here today. Would you like to just say a little bit about you and what you do, just by way of introduction, so people know who you are, and then we'll just dive in with a bit of chit chat and see where it goes.
Absolutely. I'm super honored to be here. Thank you. So my name is Allison Gallagher. I am a life and business coach for, I like to say high achieving women, but women that put a lot of pressure on themselves to
Yeah.
achieve, to attain, to lose the weight, to um, reach the goal. And I help them just kind of loosen that grip on that pressure and create the version of themselves to achieve the goal, but also relax, right? It's me, right? I'm helping people like
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
relax on the way to the goal, right? Try to make it fun. Um, but I've been coaching for a few years now, but I have been an entrepreneur I started my first business in 2006 as a portrait photographer, and I was a portrait
Yeah.
photographer for a very long time until I started to hire coaches, and then I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I've been put on this planet to be a coach, 1000%. And I transitioned, and here I am.
Amazing. And I love that. And anyone that's watching this on YouTube will be able to see some of your amazing photography work in the background on your
Yes,
picture.
yes,
And
yes,
it's
yes.
really interesting because so Alison is one of my clients. And for anyone that's been listening to this podcast for a while, how Alison just described that she works with people and said, oh, and it's a version of me, I could have given the same introduction, right? Because here I am, that same version, right? So it's so interesting, isn't it? And I don't know if it shows up in the same way for your clients, but generally when I think so you've got this kind of overarching, let's call it the mask of the high achiever, and then what's going on underneath is often people pleasing, perfectionism, not feeling good enough, trying to prove my personal thing. So this isn't my client thing now, this is my personal thing. It's like trying to earn the right to exist. Um, and what a gift it is to be able to give people the tools and the skills and the self-concept for themselves where they get to loosen some of that.
Mm. And I don't know. I'm not I don't have knowledge of all things, but I believe most high achievers are driven from a place of inadequacy, right? Um, and I'm here to interrupt that pattern, right? We're here to interrupt that pattern. And then, and I think sometimes people think, well, if I interrupt that pattern, I won't achieve, right?
Mm,
That's the fear.
yes. Yeah.
And I always love to speak to that part of my audience that's like, oh no, 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 we this is how we thrive, is the pattern that we've had. If I do that, I won't show up for my life. And the irony is, like, you remind me, we show up in more ease,
Mm.
in we show up in feeling lighter, having more energy,
Mm.
and we become the version of ourselves that can achieve without the grip of control and pressure and fear. We can achieve from a place of, oh, of course I attain this. Like, this is the
Yeah.
person that attains these things, right? And I did it in a light and airy way
Mm.
versus the heaviness that the inadequacy fuels, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always grateful for those reminders because I have that inadequacy in me that
Mhm.
wants to rear her ugly head. I love her dearly, but she's not serving me anymore.
Yeah, and I think it's such a good point because you're right. And I think we've all gone through that iteration. It's like we achieve success or success on paper anyway. It might feel a bit differently on the inside, but we
Mhm,
achieve
mhm.
this outward success by pushing and hustling and overworking. And I'm not sure that it's part of your story, but it's certainly part of mine and a lot of my clients that then we do the burnout thing and all of these pieces. And the idea of slowing down, resting, nourishing, taking care of ourselves feels like it's always going to be at the detriment of the success, the results, and actually learning. I had one-on-one with one of the ladies that's joining the Wealthy Witches Mastermind this morning. And I said to her, it's remembering all of that stuff that you achieve from the pushing and the hustling, but they're trying to be something that you aren't. And they're trying to do stuff that doesn't quite match who you are because you've decided that's what you need in order to be successful. Think about what you achieve in that space, and then imagine what you can actually achieve when you are doing what you came here to do and not pushing and not hustling and just allowing it to flow, because that is truly where the magic happens. So I love that you've raised that.
Yeah, I imagine the inadequacy. I mean, I've thrived in my life. I have,
Mm,
as a high achiever and a doer, and I'm an action taker. When I first when I hired my first business coach, the marketing tactics were hardly out of her mouth, and I went to work, right?
mm.
And I remember her saying to me, and this was a photography business coach, and she would give us these different marketing ideas, and she would turn to me and say, Allison, you're only allowed to pick one, because I would do four at one time. And so I can be self-accountable, and I am, a very driven action taker, and I have thrived. But that fueling of the inadequacy deep down has just been a ball and chain.
Yeah, yeah,
And so when you let go of that ball and chain, what actually can you accomplish? It's like 100 times more,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
sometimes, sometimes we don't know that there's that inadequacy is there because we're believing our thoughts,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Or we don't even know them. Like I didn't know in 2018 when I burnt out. First of all, I didn't know I was a people pleaser. I kind of did know I was a perfectionist. Definitely didn't know what boundaries were because a lady in the office kept talking about them, and I was like, "What's she going on about?" Um, I had no idea that sitting underneath the surface was this deep belief that I was unlovable,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything that went into managing that. So, what I'd love to talk about, and you can either talk about it from a personal perspective or how it shows up for your clients or a bit of both, is so we create these patterns of the patterns that result in high achieving. There's obviously a cost, right? And in order to net off that cost or to be able to carry on with that cost, often underneath, we then create patterns of behavior to support us and soothe us, or to balance it out, that outwardly people don't necessarily see, but inwardly impact us on our day to day. So I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, I mean, procrastination
Yeah,
is a big one. Or showing up but not showing up fully, like, oh, I put my foot in the pond
yeah.
of the business. I posted once on social media
Mm-hmm.
and I did the thing, right? But so going halfway in and not fully in,
Yeah.
sabotaging success, not celebrating the wins.
Mhm.
I just spoke to someone who, you know, may potentially hire me, and we were talking about she's afraid to celebrate the wins, right? You're afraid they're going to go away, you're afraid that you're going to get distracted by them, that you're not going to show up if you start to celebrate, and this is all fueled from inadequacy. Or the and the inadequacy for some of this is, oh, if I build it, I won't be able to sustain it too, right? Which is the
Yeah.
procrastination, which is the fear of success, and the fear, some people are fear of failure, fear of success, and they don't even know it, and
Yeah.
that was me. I mean, I'm very driven, I'm very bold. Um, but there is a piece of me that I'm still digging out that is scared to fully step into her power because of what is on the other side. I know that I'm big energy. I know that I'm capable of really, really, and I just said this on my own podcast, like taking up a lot of space energetically, right? Like
Yeah.
the power that I hold, the movement that I can create, the business I can create, the impact. I know I'm built for very big things. And yet there is a piece of me that feels very young
Mm.
that is like, yeah, but to sustain it, you're just not capable, right? And that's going to
Yeah.
hold you back,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it might be not, it might be procrastinating and calling a client. It might be scrolling on Instagram, you know? And as far as, and I'm relating this to business, you
Mm.
know, in our personal life, for me, I had these beliefs that I really uncovered only a few months ago, deeply really uncovered it, that I am wired to struggle, right? I have to suffer to receive. I
Mm.
have to struggle to produce and earn. And I'm still unpacking it. There's part of me that's like, yeah, no, that can't be true. And then there's a part of me like that's, oh, this is very true. And I see the patterns in my life. I created reasons to struggle because I thought that's how I produced.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing once we can start to see the patterns and start to make sense of them, that then we can start to unwind them. And then, I mean, and you know this because you work with me, and then build that sense of safety in the body. So it's not just, oh, I've got this awareness now, but it's also how do I create this internal safety within so that I can now be with the sensations, the fear, because you talked about fear quite a lot, move through some of that fear to release these patterns that then opens up that space for ease. And I think it's super interesting what you said about, that very little girl inside you that thinks that she's not capable and thinks she needs to struggle. And it's really, really interesting. The more of this work you do, the more you realize how much we hold inside us and within us that stops us. And this isn't work that I've been doing with Allison, although she might have done it on her own. But so this is a me thing rather than Allison thing. I know the more of this work I went into, the more past life stuff started coming up. And then I had all of these memories of times where I'd been horrifically murdered for what I was doing. And I was there trying to make a difference, leading these revolutions, leading these missions, leading these movements of change of like, no, things need to be different. Was it any wonder I was here, like you've just said, knowing I was meant for more, knowing I was supposed to help people, knowing I was meant to disrupt, seeing the world and the systems and been like, we need to change this. But there'd been this deep terror in me, like, well, no, because I can't do this, because if I do this, I get killed.
Mm,
And it's how do we peel back these layers and peel back these layers and keep peeling back the layers, so ultimately we get to a space of it's safe to be all of me. It's safe to be all of me. I am capable. And you said something beautiful before, but when you were doing the photography coaching and then you started to have the coach and you had that realization of, oh, coaching, this is what I came here to do.
mm, hmm.
And then really allowing yourself to feel into that and be like, yeah, this is what I came here to do, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to look at all of this stuff that stops me taking up the space in a bigger way, in the way I was born to do, which is amazing.
And and I really do think, maybe I'm wrong, but I really do think you have to you can't just sit and discover through stillness what in you is blocking you. You actually have to go out into the world and try things,
Yeah.
fail, hit a block, see a pattern, right? And the pattern has to be seen in the movement, in the living of the life. And that is the hardest part, right? So we can't just sit. We can't create a protective wall around us and say, I'm going to go inside and dig it all out myself, right? In an afternoon. We have to like go out into the world, try things, do things, show up. Oh, and then you see the pattern. You see the procrastination. You see the binging. You see the whatever the self sabotage is with buffering, alcohol, yelling at our kids over and over and over, being triggered. Like those are being active in the world as a human, living the experience is how we discover what is going on internally. And that's what makes it hard. And that's what makes it what people want to run in the other direction. And
Yes.
that's what but also that's what makes, in my opinion, I mean, I just wouldn't want to live any other way, and I wouldn't want my daughter robbed of that opportunity. And I have some sadness for people that don't want to look inward, that don't want to. I mean, I just use the word heal in
Mm.
some way, shape, or form, whatever that looks like for them. Because when you heal, it because we are all so stinking powerful.
Mm.
All of us as
Yes.
human beings, we are all so
Yeah.
powerful. And we don't remember that. We disempower ourselves most days, like especially women. We don't really see our power. And when we really look inward and discover things that are blocking us or discover things that need some extra love, and we create that connection with ourselves and we solidify ourselves to ourselves in some way, which creates healing on the outside, right? The
Yeah. Yeah.
behavior changes, the results of our
Mm.
life change. I don't think there's anything more powerful than that, or the evidence of our power, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I see, with my relationship with food and what that's become today,
Mm.
there is no doubt in how powerful I am.
Yes, yes. So powerful. And I really want to talk about the relationship with food because, I mean, I think I've talked about it on here a little bit, but it's something that we both definitely have in common. But I do just want to go back to, because I think it's super important. A lot of the time we want to hide from or avoid the stuff that's going on in our lives, or we get triggered by things, or we get annoyed, or we blame certain circumstances. But often that stuff is where the learning is. If we're willing to look at some of the things we're doing that might be uncomfortable to look at. So you weren't on the time alchemy call yesterday, but I said on the
Mm.
time alchemy call yesterday, I got in. Nat was just making himself some lunch, and he wasn't making himself the lunch that I thought he should make with the bread rolls that were dated yesterday. He'd gone in the freezer and got out the thing that he actually wanted to eat. And I caught myself, but not quick enough, right? Completely, like, it was not a good moment for me. I completely lost it. I was like, but you're meant to be having the bread rolls. Why have you defrosted the spaghetti bolognese? And he just looked at me and he was like, you've got to stop doing this. But he did it calmly. And then immediately I caught myself and I was like, I'm still in this pattern of I need to stop mothering him and I need to let him get on with it. But at the same time, trying to control this stuff. Because what's the worst case scenario? I mean, bread is not expensive. It also could have gone in the freezer. And of course, he should be able to eat whatever he wants for his lunch. But it's in that moment of just recognizing, okay, this pattern is still alive. Something is bringing this up. I'm being a bit of a hypocrite. This looks uncomfortable to look at. Apologizing rather than being like, you don't listen because we already talked about this. No, 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 no. And that's where the growth happens, that willingness to be like, oh, this thing still here.
Yes. And that's why compassion, self
Mm.
compassion for ourselves, giving ourselves grace is one of the top tools
Yeah.
to change, because it's like, oh, I am still doing that thing. Oh, interesting. Right. And meeting ourselves where we are with curiosity, with compassion. And if we are berating ourselves,
Mm,
we're never going to want to look at it, right?
no, exactly.
I, I'm
Exactly.
I
Oh,
do think the first step for me, the first step for me from with healing my relationship with food was talking to myself differently and seeing the habit differently.
yeah,
That was the first step.
yeah.
And then it
And
was able to
bringing,
do so many other things because I let go of that. I neutralized the shame.
yeah, and bringing that compassion in is so, so important. And then one of the questions that I often ask people, and you'll have heard this before because I've asked you, is like, why does this make perfect sense? And for me, I grew up in in crazy town around food. There were so many foods that we weren't allowed to eat because they were for dad. I've got two younger sisters. They were thinner than me. They were allowed foods. I wasn't allowed. Like it was just honestly, the food world was insane. And my parents aren't much different now. Like I
Mm.
remember my little sister who, so I was bulimic as a teenager, but my weight never went like dangerous. I'm not saying it's better. My weight never went dangerously low, but my little sister was anorexic and she got teeny, 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 tiny. And I remember when she put a stone back on, which is 14 pounds. Do you work in pounds over there?
4 pounds, yeah.
14 pounds. So she put 14 pounds back on. So she's still underweight at this point, but she's no longer looking like she's about to die. My mum's comment to her was, be careful you don't put on another 14 pounds. Right. And my parents visited last weekend, right? Now, even though I had a lovely time with them, there was lots of being around them with food and seeing how they still are with food. So then I could bring that extra layer of compassion to myself on Tuesday when I then lost it with Nat. And I was like, okay, like there's just still some stuff there to work through. I've obviously absorbed a bit of extra stuff over the weekend that also needs looking at. And then here I am doing this thing, but I'm able to catch myself. I'm able to be apologetic. I'm able to then be kind because I did feel ashamed of myself. I was like, I can't believe I'm
Hmm.
doing this again.
Hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, I hear that. I mean, I hear that. Yeah.
And then today was like, obviously, please just have whatever you want for lunch.
Hmm.
So I would love for you to share, because you've talked about binge eating a couple of times now. And what feels good in terms of you sharing? If you saw me pause then, I've had my finger over the thing and it was like resume recording. I was like, no, don't tell me it's not recording. But it is. It's fine.
Okay.
Um, by the way, and we won't edit this out either because I like it to be raw and real.
Same.
Um, um, your a potted history of your relationship with food, if you will.
I mean, I was hiding food under my bed at the age of 4.
Mhm,
And my parents, from what I recall, thought it was adorable.
mhm,
And food was restricted from me as a kid because I had a tendency to be overweight. My sister was thin, so she could eat whatever she wanted. And I started to hide food. I've pieced it together in this way. I
mhm,
was a highly sensitive kid. I was there was a lot of I think my dad carried a lot of shame, and but I had a ton of shame from the moment I could breathe and feel memory of being in my body. And I used food as connection. I used food to cope. I used food to connect. I used food, but I have to say, I used food heavily to punish myself for not being good enough.
yeah.
And I don't know if many people talk about using food in that way.
Mm.
I've never had anyone say to me, "Oh, yes, me too."
I'm
But I
I it's resonating as you're saying it, but keep going.
so I food was my obsession for most of my life. It robbed me of so many
Mm,
moments of my
mm,
life. And I was bulimic briefly in my teens. It became very unmanageable very quickly. And I was like, I can't do this. And I wasn't losing weight. So it was like, this isn't working. I just want to lose weight and it's not working. So, but I ended up in recovery for food addiction, Overeaters Anonymous. I don't know if that's where you are, but that we have that. We have several different addiction type food-based programs, all based on
yeah,
Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was in
yeah,
OA for 12 years. And my girlfriend was in recovery for heroin down in Florida. And I was telling her my relationship with food. We were in our early 20s. And she was like, there's people down here talking about OA. I want you to find a meeting and go. And she was
mm,
my best friend from kindergarten. And I just did whatever she told me to do. And so I was in recovery for food addiction for 12 years. I started to see my relationship with sugar and flour was a problem,
mhm,
and volume, of course. But
yeah,
after 12 years of being in recovery, I'm like, yeah, this the healing is not in this room. Like, it's keeping me in the
mm,
problem.
mm,
It's keeping me very fearful. And my gut told me that more healing had to be done. I wasn't going to find it in that room. And that scared me because
mm,
recovery teaches you, like, this is the last stop.
yeah, yeah,
And it took me a lot of years. I had a coach in 2018 and I started to see, oh, I knew that I was part of the problem for sure in recovery, right? You start to look at yourself. But I was like, oh, like I just started to piece together my thoughts are the problem. And I was like, my mind was blown by that. So I really went to work. And in those years of the last, I don't know how many years, 7, 8 years, I went to work and there was a lot of failure in there. There was a shit ton of failure in there, a shit ton of shame. Here we go again. You're still doing it. And, but you pick yourself up, you look at it
mm,
as information and you go again. And,
yeah,
you, I just, um, food feels lighter. It feels,
mm,
I know that it doesn't have any power over me today. And,
yeah,
a year ago, I wasn't at that 100% belief even a year ago, right? Even in the healing I had done a year ago, wasn't at full belief because there were
mm,
moments where I still lost control, quote unquote.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, obviously, one of the bits of work that we've been doing and have been adding in has been more of the sort of somatic body-based stuff. How do we, because the thing with having a challenging relationship with food and then our bodies is that we disconnect from our bodies
Yes.
and then we're sort of disconnected from ourselves, right? And there is so much shit out there that then also seeks to disconnect us from our bodies and ourselves. Because, like you talked before about this recognition of how powerful you are, we can't access that power when we've disconnected from ourselves because we've decided that who we are is bad and not good enough. So I would love to know from your perspective. If the answer is nothing, then please don't feel that you need to like humor please me. But I'd love to know from your perspective, since we started doing more of the body nervous system stuff and you've increased your awareness and understanding of that, what have you noticed? What's different?
So I know that our brain is way faster than our body,
Hmm.
and I've created the habit of slowing down. I've created the habit of being fully present in the moment to see what I really need versus the rush to get out of the present moment because it doesn't feel
Mm.
good, which is most
Yeah.
likely coming from a thought, right? Being fully aware, I mean, not 100%, right? Because our brains are so much faster than our bodies. So sometimes oh, I wish I know the exact example, but I think it was last week. Something went on, a conversation needed to be had. I don't even remember who it was with. a colleague probably, like I'm on a local board. I'm a board member of our local town. And there's some intimidation that can go with that because I'm like, I'm not board member material. These people are so
Mm.
smart, right? And so sometimes I'm triggered by having to go do something as a board member, having to make a phone call, having to do this. And I found myself eating just extra food.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
took me, I ate something small, like yogurt or something. And then I was like, oh, that's why I'm eating because I have to make that phone call.
Mm.
Right. And because I've interrupted the pattern so many times and gone inside my body to connect with discomfort, the fear,
Yeah.
I've interrupted it so many times that my brain now offers me the thought and I hear it, oh, that's why you just ate that.
Mm.
That thought may have been there 10 years ago. I would never have heard it. 5
Yeah.
years ago, I did start, like, it started slow, right? But
Mm.
last week I was like, "Oh, I have to make that phone call," which creates discomfort in my body, right?
Yeah, and then you're able to be with the discomfort in the body and
Yes.
recognize that and be with that instead of
Yes. Moving
being
forward
unaware
with
of
it.
the discomfort in the body and just plowing your face into whatever you can find to eat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, so another thing I would love you to talk about, because I think this was really interesting, was you recently had a holiday to an all-inclusive resort.
Oh
And
my
we all
gosh.
know that as overeaters, I always used to joke, I'm like, you can't trust me with a buffet.
Listen,
You can't trust me with a
for me, I mean, it was that was all I ever needed was a buffet, especially as a
Mm,
kid. Everything was
mm,
restricted from me, and when we were on vacation, my mom would kinda let me loose a little bit,
mm,
and I remember being on vacation and being able to drink chocolate milk and have
mm.
pancakes, and when I was home, that was never an option. So what do you want? Do you want me just to share my experience with the all-inclusive?
Yeah, a little bit because I remember before you went. So Alison is one of my she's in group stuff with me, but Alison's also one of my one-on-one clients. There was this concern of like I'm gonna go away and I'm gonna put on a load of weight.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
because
what was the answer? What happened?
so, I've had so many setbacks that my brain tells me this is going to be a setback. Like there you're
Mhm.
not you've done a lot of healing, but this is way too big to handle. And um and then, it's so interesting, but I'll go into it at the end. But I partook, partaked, whatever that word is. I engaged. I enjoyed food.
Yes. She enjoyed food. Let's just all pause for a
Oh,
moment there.
yeah. I mean, I
She
enjoy food
enjoyed
every
the food.
day.
Yeah.
The joy of food has not gone away. I love the food I eat, and now it's tenfold in I know that it's fueling my body and
Mhm.
tastes good.
Nice.
Um, but I tried all the desserts, right?
Hmm.
That I wanted to try that looked I was very in tune with
Mm.
not coming from a place of inadequacy with how I fed myself, coming from a
Yeah.
place of wholeness and nourishment and deciding that dessert doesn't look inviting because
Mm.
if I'm coming from inadequacy in the me that from lack and scarcity, that's like I have to eat everything that's not nailed down, right? It didn't matter
Mm.
what the dessert looked like and taste like, I was going to eat it. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Now I'm like, oh, that looks like pretty interesting. I might like the taste of that. So, and
Mhm.
because it was a buffet, like they would give little teeny tiny, right? So I
Yeah.
might bring 3 or 4 back to the table and take a bite of this one, a bite of this one, and just kind of be like, that's not really that good or whatever. And, but there was, we went with our friends and we had cocktails and it was an all inclusive, so there was a plethora of alcoholic drinks. And there were days where I'm like, no, I'm good. I would have a few but not, or some days I just had one. I just was really in tune with what felt good. And but after a 4 or 5 day all inclusive, I just didn't feel great, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, and I was a little heightened, right? Like my anxiety was high, a little high because I don't trust myself. I didn't fully trust myself. I was scared not to. It was I
Yeah.
trusting myself. I was afraid,
Mhm.
and I was very in tune with that, right? That high, the tingling in my body, that friction of, are you going to let go at any moment, right?
Yeah.
And there were nights where we went to these restaurants and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to eat this with the rice and I'm going to have these
Mhm.
cocktails are so good. I'm going to have two or three and not make it a problem. And, and my husband did, because there were times where I did make certain comments about, oh, I don't know how I'm doing. And my husband's like, you're doing great. He's like, what are you
Mm.
talking about? You're
Mhm.
working out. I brought my workout gear. I worked out and not from a place of inadequacy, but from a place of I love my workouts. And the gym was gorgeous, hanging over the ocean.
Nice.
And he was like, you're doing great. And then I came home and I was a little jacked up with
Mm.
how it went. And
Yeah.
then my conversation with you, like
Yes.
you had to help me empty my brain and
Mhm.
then see it was a total win. And
Yeah.
I gained, I don't even know. Within 9 days, I was under the weight I was when I left. 9 or 10
Mm.
days. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
I'm under right now. Like I
Yeah.
lost weight 9 days later or 10 days later. I mean, if I had
Nice.
weighed myself 7 days in, I was up like a pound and a half.
Yeah.
But then because I'm on the journey of losing the weight for the last time, I'm still
Mhm.
on that journey.
Yeah.
Um, I was under what I left at 9 or 10 days in, and I was like, Allison, this is like what normal people, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
That they're not heightened around food.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
become the person that's not heightened around food.
Yeah, which was incredible because I remember when you came back and we had this session and you were a little bit worried. You were like, I'm scared to weigh myself. And we did all these things and you were like talking me through it all. And I was like, wait a week, drink lots of water to flush out like the salt because the food tends to be a bit more salty and flush out the other stuff. I was like, message me. And I think you messaged me like a week later and you were like, I'm up half a pound. I was like, yeah, it's not a big
Yeah.
deal then, is it? But then these are some of these life things that you were talking about before where it's like I have this fear, this stuff comes up, I panicked, and I let myself go and enjoy myself. I let loose. I had the cocktails, I had the cake. It wasn't like I'm eating everything that's nailed down. It was different. And then this is how you build that self-trust because it's like, oh, I can
Yes.
go and do this thing and it can be okay. And I think sometimes people think it has to be all or nothing. So
Agreed.
I can never, because I remember when we first worked together and you were like, I don't really want you to tell me that I can't eat sugar or flour ever again. And I was like, yeah, that's not what that's not what's going to happen
Hmm.
here.
Hmm.
And it's that allowing of, no, a little bit of what I fancy does me good, but generally I'm going to eat to nourish and love myself. But sometimes that's going to look like the ice cream.
Yes. I eat ice
And I
cream every
can
day.
trust myself. Yeah. And I'm going to trust myself to have the ice cream. I bought recently, they are all gone now, but that's fine. They lasted a long time. But we went into this shop and they had like 125-gram bars of different chocolates, but they had a 70% cocoa with salted caramel and a 70% one with raspberry. And then I got a normal 70 and an 85. So that's what, 500 grams of chocolate. And when I brought it home and put it on the side, I still haven't done a post about it. I've got a picture of the chocolate bars before they got eaten. I saw them on the side and there was just this moment of like, I could never have done that. Because either I would have not wanted any of it because I was trying to restrict myself so much,
Hmm.
or I would have eaten it all and then felt really shit about myself. And it's like, no, I can now have all of this stuff in the house and be chill. And I think the thing that's so important from the perspective of like the people that you work with or that I work with, oh my goodness, how many hours a day do you get back when you're not obsessing about
Oh
food?
my gosh. It's, I mean,
hours.
Slowly, it's been slowly over the years. I've let
Mm,
some of that go, right? I
mm,
remember I sat in me and my husband have been married a long time and we dated. I was like 20 and
mm,
I was at the height. I mean, he was with me at the height of my addiction. He was with me through most, I mean, you know, we were 20 years old. I'm 47. He saw my bottom, right?
mm.
And I would beg him. He lived around the corner from me, and I would drive to his house at like 7 in the morning, and I'd beg him, please don't leave me alone with the food today. And he's like, I got to go to work. Like we were 20, you know? And I was petrified to be alone with the food. And I would just think about it all day long. Right. And so over the years, I've let that slowly, but
Yeah, yeah.
now I don't have the fear of losing control.
Mm,
Right. That's really what became my predominant thought was when will I lose control and obsessing over why I was losing control. And and the little I do believe, I don't know if this is serving me, I don't know, but I do believe like I eat ice cream just about every day and I believe that that is like that is for my the little girl in me that didn't get it.
oh, yes, yeah,
Right? I'm like,
yeah,
girlfriend,
yeah,
I hear you. You
yes,
deserve the ice cream and we're going to
yes,
enjoy the shit out of it. And I still get to have the body that I want at 47, right?
yeah, yeah.
And I never thought that was possible.
Mm. Yeah, and I think you're right. It's so important because so often we think it's got to be all one way or all the other way, but it's like
Yes.
no. I eat chocolate every day. In fact, I get a little bit upset if I've run out of chocolate. Or sometimes I'll be like, oh no, I won't have any chocolate for a while, and then I'm like, what was I thinking? And I've just had my one that got delivered a couple of days ago. I think it's a 70% cocoa, but it's called chocolate with benefits from one of the health food shops over here, and it's got ashwagandha in. So I'm like, I mean, this is like now a full-on legitimate health food of deliciousness.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought I had to restrict, so I would use food as a tool to punish myself, and restriction
Mm,
was one of those ways. So
mm,
I restricted myself for so many years that of course you're going to binge, right? That was one of the
yeah.
reasons I binged. And I didn't think that it was possible to eat over 1,100, 1,200 calories and lose weight. Um, and I would stick my heels in the ground like, no.
Mm.
And then I would be so anxious if I did that I didn't enjoy it and the weight didn't come off, or as soon as I saw a day where I was up on the scale, I was like, nope, not doing this. Where now I weigh myself a lot just for data. I'm
Yeah.
not even, trying to I don't make the scale mean I just data for me. Okay, you're eating this and this is what's happening. And so I'm like, this feels I had no idea it could feel this amazing. Like there are days where I'm like, is this really possible? Is this really happening in my life?
Yeah, and this has now become your reality. And then what that doesn't mean is there won't be points in time where you'll find yourself overeating. It was
Mhm.
really interesting for me on Sunday. I did like, I'm not just like say this as a lie. I did genuinely have a lovely weekend with my parents at the weekend, but I went no contact with them 4.5 years ago after a disaster visit that they had at our house. And this was the first time they'd stayed with us in 4.5 years. And it was really interesting. We'd gone out for Sunday lunch and then they'd left, I'd gone to have a nap, and I got up and I found myself in the kitchen. So I'd cooked a chicken the day before and I boiled up the chicken to make bone broth. We call it stock over here, but I think the fancy term is bone broth. So it makes sense what I made. And the bone broth was done, and we'd had some sourdough bread left over. And I was like, "Ooh, sourdough bread dipped in the bone broth would be nice." And I had a piece of bread, and then I had another piece of bread, and then I went to get the next thing. And at that point, I was like, "Oh, this is interesting.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh, this is interesting." And then at that point, I was like, "Well, like I've had enough now. I don't need to continue eating the bread and the sourdough." Whereas, like 20 years ago, that bread would have been gone, and then anything else in the kitchen would have been gone. And like you, my bulimic phase didn't last very long because actually my parents found out and they took me to the doctor, and the doctor lied to me. At the time, I wanted to be a vet. The doctor lied to me. Not a great lie, but the doctor lied to me and said, if I have to write on your medical records that you've got this illness, you won't be able to do anything to do with like medicine or looking after animals or anything in the future, which was a lie, but it scared me enough to stop doing it.
Well, but it also creates a deep sense of shame.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And all I did was just go back to overeating.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I don't know how many people, but what I will say is a large percentage of my clients have had challenges with food in the past. They might be challenges that are now broadly resolved. They might be challenges that rear their heads sometimes. But I think, and it does happen to men as well, but I think this is largely a female thing. And there's a huge, huge number of women out there who maybe on paper and outwardly look they're high achieving, they're doing well, but inwardly they've got some food challenges. Because I know when I was in corporate, I mean, I was gonna say I looked ripped, but I didn't. I looked scrawny, but I was doing weight training. I looked like someone that like didn't quite feed herself properly, but weight trained, like that kind of physique. But you wouldn't have necessarily known. I was
Hmm.
a healthy enough weight that you wouldn't have necessarily known unless you spent a lot of time around me and realized how neurotic I was with food, that there was stuff going on. So I think it is a massive, massive issue. And there's a lot of people out there who are disconnected from themselves, not having a great time with food. Also, like you said, disconnected from their power and all of the rest of it. And you have a fantastic, I don't know if you're calling it a workshop or a masterclass or a webinar or what, but you have a fantastic thing coming up next week because this is going to come out on the 3rd of April.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
that can support people. And I would love as we come to the end for you to just share a little bit about that so that if anyone is listening to this and resonating with it, they can come and join your workshop, masterclass,
I
webinar
mean, I
thing.
call it's interchangeable depending on the email, depending on what I say, but webinar,
Yeah.
workshop, I just want to turn and help others. And so I
Hmm.
decided to do, this is my first webinar on my relationship with food or on healing your relationship with food
Mm.
or, stepping into the power of the version of you that doesn't have a problem with food, weight,
Yes.
your weight, your food, the struggle. And so that's April 8th. That is 5 p.m. and it's Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
And I guess, my information will be in the show notes. You can get the link
Yeah.
to register for that. But I'm going to talk about really six shifts that help you unravel yourself from the obsessiveness with food, with your body, the push and pull of
Yes.
not being enough in the body you walk around in, and your weight. Um,
Yes.
so I'm excited to offer the value in the way of in my experience of what I know works.
Yeah, and what I will say, having seen the 6 shifts, because Alison was like, "What do you think about these?" And I would just like to say that my only response, my only notes on Alison's list was, "This is perfect."
Yes,
That was it.
that is what you
Was
said.
that was all I said. Um, so yeah, so we will make sure we will link that in the show notes. Is it going to be recorded?
It will be recorded. So here's another thing.
Yeah.
Whoever registers will get the recording. And if you come live, I am creating an ebook right now with 25, 30 plus recipes that are really versatile, create satiation for me, that help me maintain my food freedom for sure with the foods I eat. And plus, there's going to be tips in there and strategies that after the webinar, I'll be selling that.
Yeah.
But if you come live, you're going to get that ebook. So that's an extra bonus to show up live because I do think the energy of being live, asking questions, all those things
Yeah.
is a higher value.
Yeah, amazing, absolutely. And I will also say that I've had a sneak peek at some of the ebook and stunning is the word. Stunning.
I'm
So
having so much fun making an ebook.
it's so good. The only reason why I asked is if some of my listeners are in the UK and Europe, because we're ahead of you. So 5 p.m. your time is going to be 10 p.m. for us and like 11 p.m. midnight for some of the Europeans. So it
Got it.
may be that they have to buy the ebook. Highly recommend you buy the ebook. But obviously, like US people or people in different time zones absolutely come live. But what I don't want is for like the UK people to be like, oh, well, that's too late for me.
Yeah, no, if they register, they get the recording.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Amazing. Anything else you would like to say before we finish off?
I'm just grateful that you decided to show up and know that it is your purpose to give back. If you did not do that, I wouldn't have you on my journey with me, and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful to have you as my coach.
Oh, are you gonna try and make me? That is so lovely. And I would just like to say that I am so grateful that you trust me to be your coach and that you trust me with all of your stuff so that we can actually get clear on and unravel it. Because you're right, there is some real magic in finding someone that you can feel safe enough with to be like, here's all my shit. Can you help?
Yep. Yep. Let's sort out what's working, what's not serving me, what's serving
Yeah.
me, what thoughts are so effed up, what is happening.
Amazing. So we will get the class link, which is 5 p.m. Eastern time, which is 10 p.m. UK time on the 8th of April in the show notes. If people want to come and stalk you, Alison, where
Oh,
can they find you? Social media. You mentioned before about your podcast. Do you want to?
oh, awesome. So you can find me on Instagram at your coach Allison Gallagher. Allison is how I spell my name. Your coach Allison Gallagher. My podcast streams YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, it's everywhere. And that's called You Get to Decide.
Mm-hmm.
And my website's AllisonGallagher.com. I always forget to share my podcast when people say, "Where can they find you?" And I've only recently remembered to do that. But so I'm creeping up on a year on that podcast.
Amazing. And Alison does incredible podcast episodes. She's very vulnerable. She's very open. She's very honest. It's very relatable. So I recommend you check that out. And also just notice how this podcast is called Your Way and
Yes.
Alison's podcast is called You Get to Decide. Do we think that perhaps there was like some kind of soul contract, divine meeting, we were supposed to work
I
together,
love
piece
it.
going on there?
Love it. And a pattern. There's a pattern, right?
Yes.
It's you have more control than you think you have.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. So I will see everybody in a couple of weeks. Alison, you've been amazing. Thank you. Don't forget to check out the show notes for everything that Alison has shared. If the Wealthy Witches Mission Mastermind is calling you, that will also be in the show notes. And I will see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Alison.
Thank you. Bye.